to start off, we'll take our green yarn and chain 7 plus 1 turning chain, right? So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chains plus 1 your turning chain. So this will form the main body of your leaf. And what we'll do to create a really nice look is we're actually going to work all around our chain. So not just the top that we would normally work on, but also the underside. And this can look a bit complicated, but just take your time. It's an easy pattern. And the good news is that what you will be doing on the top, you'll be essentially replicating in the bottom. So as long as your pieces are symmetrical, so essentially the stitch that you do on the top is the same stitch you do on the bottom, you'll be fine and it will look really pretty. So to start off, we will slip stitch in the first and the second chain from the hook. So the first one is this one, we'll go into here and we'll slip stitch. And again here you'll see that there is a gradual sort of increase of the stitches, and you start from a slip stitch and you go up onto a single crochet and then a half double, and that's all so we can start give our leaf a bit of a shape, so some curving to reflect kind of how the leaf should look like in the end. So we've done our first slip stitch. The next stitch will be a single crochet stitch, so 1 single crochet, and then we will do another single crochet. That's how our leaf is looking for the moment. And then in the next stitch here we will place 2 half double crochets. And the half double crochets are worked by yarning over, putting your hook through your stitch or your chain, yarning over, pulling through, and then yarn over again and you pull through all your loops like this. So you see here, our piece is starting to grow. It's starting from small here and increasing. And then for the rest of the stitches, we will just mirror what we've just done. So we will do 2 single crochet stitches and then a slip stitch. And that will be the first side of our leaf. So we will continue by doing 2 single crochets here. So 1, 2. And then a slip stitch. So now you've completed essentially the first side of your leaf. It's quite small, it's quite dainty, so sometimes it's hard to see. But what we need now to do is work on the underside, and we will just do the same stitches that we did on this side, just on the other side. And what we need is to do to chain 1. So that we have a bit more wiggle room with our yarn to turn it around and start doing our stitches on this underside. So we've chained 1, right? And what we'll do is we'll start with a slip stitch. So I can see that my slip stitch is here. So I go under here and I will slip stitch. And because I've done that extra chain, I've got enough give so my piece is not crumbling, right? Or it's not kind of turning in on itself. And the next one will be a single crochet. And again, hopefully you can see, here I've got a single crochet. So that's where I'll go here on my chain and do a single crochet. And again, the next stitch is also a single crochet. And it's easy to distinguish because then you have a double, 2 half doubles in the same stitch. So you can sort of definitely know that that's not the right place to be putting your last single crochet. So here, like I just said, we've got our 2 half doubles. So we'll work 2 half doubles in here. So yarn over, go through, yarn over again, and pull through 3. And do that once more. And there you go. And don't worry if, because you're working on the underside of your chains, you know, if there's a bit of gap, don't worry too much about it. It will all come together once you continue with your rows. And it's a two row or 2 round little pattern. So there isn't that much to go. You've basically done the hardest bit now. So then we'll do a single crochet in the next bit and a further single crochet, and then in this last stitch, it's barely visible because it is a slip stitch, we'll do our last slip stitch. And there you go. That's how your little piece should look like. So you see it's quite symmetrical. It is small, but it will look very cute once you're finished. But now what we need to do is work on our next row or round. It's not entirely round, but we're working across around our piece. So what we'll do to create kind of that little edge that you see here, we'll do a chain 3. We'll do a chain 3. Let me just get some yarn so our piece is not pulling. So we'll do a chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And to create a bit of a shape, to give it a bit of a shape, right, we will slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. So 1 and 1, 2. So that middle one, this is where we're going to slip stitch into. And that just gives us a bit of a little point, essentially, that helps create the shape of our little leaf. And then what you will do to stabilize this, right, you will slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. Now this first stitch here is your slip stitch from the first round, right? And it might be a bit hard to get under, but again, give yourself a bit of time, a bit of patience. Small pieces are always a bit fiddly, but they're always worth it. There you go. Make sure you put your hook under both of these loops, right? Yarn over, pull through your stitch carefully. Right. There we go. And then pull through again. And you've seen now we've created a bit of a little corner here, a bit of an angle. And you'll do another slip stitch on the next stitch that you have, and that should be the one that you've worked a single crochet before. There we go. And now what you need to do is again create those little triangular pieces. So to do that, we will do a single crochet into the next stitch, which should be your second single crochet from the last row, if you're following. And then what we'll do is we will chain 2. And again, to create that little angle, we'll slip stitch into the second chain from hook. So 1, 2. There we go. And to give it a bit more of a size, to make it a bit more puffy, we'll do a single crochet in that same stitch, right? So essentially, in that single crochet from that row before, you worked a single crochet, and then you've chained 2, slip stitched, and then chained a single crochet in the same stitch. And now what you will do is you will slip stitch in the next 2 stitches, right? So 1, 2. You can already see that our little leaf is taking shape. Sometimes it's harder to explain than to show, and I think that's really the case with this pattern. It reads in a very complicated way, but actually when you go to do it and you look at how it actually looks and what you're meant to be doing, it's not that bad. It's just a bit small and fiddly. So now we need to work another little triangular shape like this one, and we'll do it in exactly the same way. We'll do a single crochet, chain 1 and chain 2, and then in that second chain from hook we will slip stitch, right, to create a bit of an angle, and then we're going to single crochet in that same stitch. We're going to get some yarn here. And now you should have two stitches left on that side of your piece, and we will slip stitch into them. So you see now, we've basically done half of our little leaf. And what we need to do now is work that edge here. And we will do it in the same way as we worked this edge here. So what we will do is, we will chain 3. One, 2, 3. And we'll slip stitch into the second chain from hook. So 1, 2 in that middle chain like we did previously. And again, to fix that in the right place, we'll slip stitch into that first slip stitch here. Again, it might be a bit difficult to get through. So this one was quite easy. Slip stitch there. Perfect. Then we will do another slip stitch. That should be your single crochet from the previous row. And then we will work again. It's similar side, right? One side reflects the other because they're meant to be symmetrical. So we will do our single crochet here again, and you know you're in the right place because they are one on top of each other. And you'll do 1, 2 chains, slip stitch. Oops, make sure don't lose bits of your thread. There we go. And then you're going to do another single crochet. Then you're going to do 2 slip stitches, just like we did before. Right. We're basically there. And you're going to do a single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, slip stitch in the second chain from hook, do another single crochet, and then do another slip stitch here, the next one, and in your last stitch, 1 further slip stitch. Oops. And really, that's all there is. That is your little leaf here. All done. And if you want to complete it, what you can do is identify the first chain of the chain 3 that you worked in before and slip stitch into that. But really, wherever you slip stitch into, just to finish off your piece, it will be absolutely fine. All you need to do is do a little slip stitch, fasten up your yarn, and I guess for me, I'm leaving quite a big tail on this one just because I would like to use this bit here to then fix my yarn. Well, fix the little leaf on our piece. So what I'll do is I'll weave in this end just like I will weave in the ends of the other ones, but keep this one, this larger bit, so that I can use that to sew it in the right place, in the place that I prefer, on the icing. And so what you'll do is for your leaves, you'll repeat this one more time, or you can do a total of 4 leaves if you would like your little item to look the same on both the front and the back. I'm hanging this on my tree, so I didn't really think it needed it, but of course you're more than welcome to do that if you want to give the little ornament that sort of look. And you're basically almost done. So now to make our little berries, right? These are essentially made by adapting essentially the bubble stitch. So what you will do is take your red yarn, do a loop here, and then chain 3. And just make sure that your first chain is not too tight because that's where you will be putting your bubble stitch. And the bubble stitch is normally created by semi-completing a number of double crochets. In this case, we will be putting in this little chain 7 of these semi-complete double crochets. And this is how it's done. Yarn over, push your hook through that chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 2. And normally here, if you were doing a double crochet, you would be yarning over and pulling through the other 2 loops. But in this case, we will just continue adding loops like this to our hook. So you'll yarn over, you'll go through the chain again, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 2. So now you have 2 semi-complete double crochets plus the initial loop we had on our stitch. So you'll continue doing this until you have 7 of these loops, of these semi-completed double crochet on your hook plus that initial loop. So we're looking for 8 loops on your hook in total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I need 1 more. And there we go. And so now that you have your 8 loops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you'll yarn over and you'll pull through the whole piece. Now, one tip I would recommend to make sure that your little berry comes out looking very symmetrical is that every time you semi-complete a double crochet, you just tug your hook here a bit just to make sure that these the rows here, the yarn, the way it sits nicely, and there's no bulging or no yarn that is, the yarn is quite, the yarn is tight. You don't want it too tight, but you also don't want it loose. You don't want it sagging. So if you just do that with your hook after you've sort of semi-completed each double crochet, that will help, especially if you've just started with the bubble stitch. It's quite useful. So when we're at this stage, just yarn over and pull your hook through all of these loops. Again, give it a small tug because that helps make your berry look nice and circular and quite plumb. And then just chain 1 so that you sort of stabilize it there. You kind of set the yarn and give yourself again a bit of slack with your yarn, a bit more, you know, enough yarn so that you can weave it in, knot it, and all of that. And then just to make sure that the shape doesn't change too much, take the 2 ends and just put a little knot there, just like that. You can do a double one if you want, but a single one is just fine as well. This way, when you place it on top of the white of the icing, it will sit really nice and tight.